Hello everyone, we are in section 3, wrapping up section 3. It is book study 12 here on Yogi Theosophy of the Key to Theosophy. Now there is a link to this actual text in the description down below. This book was written 130 years ago. So we are on page, I believe it's 47, wrapping up section 3. And remember that it isn't about me. I'm simply a former broadcaster who wishes to share my experience through the application of these very sacred and important teachings that have changed my life in such a way that I must share them. So I am doing something here on this channel that you can find elsewhere. You can find these teachings elsewhere, especially in the mellifluous writings of Rumi, as we've talked about, in the Bhagavad Gita, in the philosophy of Plato and Paracelsus, in the Jewish mysticism of Kabbalah, okay? So Theosophy is where I find that this works for me, so I'm sharing it with you. So as we wrap up section 3, finishing up section 3, remember that this book was written 130 years ago, okay? Things have changed since then. The internet has changed the way we look at libraries and communication with other people. So this is a little bit different than when it was written. The world is a different place. So let's go ahead and get started, shall we? Here we are. Okay. Remember that to live to benefit mankind is the first step. That's the most important thing to remember, okay? Because that's the key to Theosophy. Well, there's many keys, but anyway, that's what I find really ticks that box inside me. So here we go. We're still rolling. All right. So, Inquirer. Remember, this is written in question and answer form. And I'm just reading the book to you. I call these book studies. The most important thing is not what I say or what I do or my interpretation of it. It is yours. This is about you, okay? So I just read this for you so you can have access to the text and just one take on it. So what you do with it and how you apply it is where the miracles happen, if you want to call them that. Okay, Inquirer. Will you now, here we are, our other objects. Okay. Will you now explain the methods by which you propose to carry out the second object? Theosophist. To collect for the library at our headquarters in Adyar, Madras, that is in India, and by the fellows of their branches for their local libraries, all the good works upon the world's religions that we can. Side note here, okay? Side note. All of the world's libraries are at your fingertips online now, so that has changed this a little bit. Okay, to gather all the good works upon the world's religions that we can, to put in written form correct information upon the various ancient philosophies, traditions, and legends, and disseminate the same in such practicable ways as the translation and publication of original works of value, and extracts from and commentaries upon the same, or the oral instruction of persons learned in their respective departments. Inquirer. And what about the third object, which is to develop in man his latent spiritual or psychic powers? Theosophist answers, this has to be achieved also by means of publications, in those places where no lectures and personal teachings are possible. Our duty is to keep alive in man his spiritual intuitions, to oppose and counteract, after due investigation and proof of its irrational nature, bigotry in every form, religious, scientific, or social, and can't, above all, whether as religious sectarianism or as belief in miracles or anything supernatural. What we have to do is seek to obtain knowledge of all the laws of nature and to diffuse it, to encourage the study of those laws least understood by modern people, the so-called occult sciences, based on the true knowledge of nature, instead of, at present, the superstitious beliefs based on blind faith and authority. Popular folklore and traditions, however fanciful at times, when sifted, this is important, when sifted, may lead to the discovery of long lost but important secrets of nature. That is so important, I'm going to read it again. Popular folklore and traditions, however fanciful, at times, when sifted, may lead to the discovery of long-lost but important secrets of nature. The Society, therefore, aims at pursuing this line of inquiry in the hope of widening the field of scientific and philosophical observation. On the sacredness of the pledge. Mr. Rowling? Yeah, okay. Inquirer, have you any ethical system that you carry out in the Society? Theosophist, the ethics are there, ready and clear enough for whomever would follow them. They are the essence and the cream of the world's ethics, gathered from the teachings of all the world's great reformers. Therefore you will find represented therein Confucius and Zoroaster, Lao Tzu and the Bhagavad Gita, the precepts of Gautama Buddha and Jesus of Nazareth, of Hillel and his school, as of Pythagoras, Socrates, Plato, and their schools. Inquirer, do members of your society carry out these precepts? I have heard of great dissensions and quarrels among them. Theosophist, very naturally, since although the reform in its present shape, may be called new, again, this is written 130 years ago, the men and women to be reformed are the same human sinning natures as of old. As already said, the earnest working members are few, but many are the sincere and well-disposed persons who try their best to live up to the society's and their own ideals. Our duty is to encourage and assist individual fellows in self-improvement, intellectual, moral, and spiritual, not to blame or condemn those who fail. We have, strictly speaking, no right to refuse admission to anyone, especially in the esoteric section of the society, wherein he who enters is one newly born. But if any member, his sacred pledges on his word of honor and immortal self notwithstanding, chooses to continue after that new birth with the new man, the vices or defects of his old life, and indulge in them still in the society, then, of course, he is more than likely to be asked to resign and withdraw, or in case of his refusal, he is expelled. We have the strictest rules for such emergencies. Inquirer, can some of them be mentioned? Theosophist, they can. To begin with, no fellow in the society, whether exoteric or esoteric, has a right to force his personal opinions upon another fellow. Seriously, that's important. To begin with, no fellow in the society, whether exoteric or esoteric, has a right to force his personal opinions upon another fellow. It is not lawful for any officer of the parent society to express in public by word or act any hostility to or preference for any one section of a branch or a lodge composed solely of co-religionists, or a branch in partibus, which means in the lands of the believers, as they are now somewhat bombastically called, religious or philosophical, more than another. All have an equal right to have the essential features of their religious belief laid before the tribunal of an impartial world. And no officer of the society in his capacity as an officer has the right to preach his own sectarian, which means bigoted, views and beliefs to members assembled, except when the meeting consists of his co-religionists. After due warning, violation of this rule shall be punished by suspension or expulsion. This is one of the offenses in the society at large. As regards the intersection now called the esoteric, the following rules have been laid down and adopted as far back as 1880. No fellow shall put to his selfish use any knowledge communicated to him by any member of the first section, now a higher degree, violation of the rule being punished by expulsion. Now, however, before any such knowledge can be imparted, the applicant has to bind himself by a solemn oath not to use it for selfish purposes, nor to reveal anything except by permission. Inquirer, but is a man expelled or resigning from the section free to reveal anything he may have learned or to break any clause of the pledge he has taken? Theosophist, certainly not. His expulsion or resignation only relieves him from the obligation of obedience to the teacher, and from that of taking an active part in the work of the society, but surely not from the sacred pledge of secrecy. Inquirer, But is this reasonable and just? Theosophist, most assuredly. To any man or woman with the slightest honorable feeling, a pledge of secrecy taken even on one's word of honor, much more to one's higher self, the God within, is binding until death. And though he may leave the section and the society, no man or woman of honor will think of attacking or injuring a body to which he or she has been so pledged. Inquirer: but is this not going rather far? Theosophist: perhaps so, according to the low standard of the present time and morality. But if it does not bind as far as this, what use is a pledge at all? How can anyone expect to be taught secret knowledge? That is, secret knowledge, secret and sacred, secret knowledge, if he is to be at liberty to free himself from all the obligations he had taken wherever he pleases? What security, confidence, or trust would ever exist among men if pledges such as this were to have no real binding force, no really binding force at all? Believe me, the law of retribution, karma, the law of retribution, karma, the law of balance, would very soon overtake one who broke his pledge, and perhaps as soon the contempt of every honorable man would, even on this physical plane. As well expressed in the NY Path, which is the New York Path, just cited on this subject, a pledge once taken is forever binding in both the moral and occult worlds. If we break it once and are punished, that does not justify us in breaking it again. And so long as we do, so long will the mighty lever of the law of karma, balance, fulcrum, react upon us. Now, the path that is referred to there is the Path. It's a magazine out of New York, edited by William Q. Judge. Ran for about 10 years, from 1886 to 1896. It's a theosophical magazine dedicated to the brotherhood of humanity, Theosophy in America, the study of occult science and philosophy, and Arian, so don't freak out, Arian, which means holy, noble, and distinguished literature. So there is number 12. We did it. Good. So I call it a book study. I ask that you study yourself. I ask that you apply these teachings, become these teachings. And remember that this is not some kind of egoic competition among the elitist theosophists, because they are out there. There are, the society is changing. It has changed. Any organization where you have 2 or more people, there are 3 opinions that are vying for the crown. So self-application, self-digestion, self-study, inquire yourself, find out yourself, because you are the temple, okay? And your higher and lower self is where all of this takes place, not a building, not a society. No membership, no dues, no fees, nobody who's a leader, just you. And by you becoming these teachings, you affect those around you. And they then become their own nucleus. And we are all one and the same. So I love you very much, and I will see you for 13. We're going to be going into section 4. I love you. See you soon.